Chen Kun, palace assistant imperial secretary, courtesy name Changwen, offered a plan to Cao Cao. He said, Liu Bei and Sun Quan now rely on each other, but Liu Bei's real goal is Sichuan. If you strike first, join forces with Hefei and attack Jiangdong, Sun Quan will beg Liu Bei for help. Liu Bei won't truly risk all his strength for his in-laws. When Sun Quan cannot get enough reinforcements, Jiangdong will fall into your hands. After that, Jing province will be easy, and then Sichuan. The realm will be settled. Cao Cao was delighted and mobilized 300,000 men to march south, ordering Zhang Liao at Hefei to prepare supplies. Spies soon reported this to Sun Quan. At a council, Zhang Zhao advised asking Lu Su to write to Liu Bei for help, reminding him of past favors and his marriage tied to Sun Quan's house. Sun Quan agreed. Lu Su wrote urgently to Jingzhou. Liu Bei, after reading, invited Zhuge Liang from Nanjun. Kongming smiled and said, "We can make Cao Cao fear to move southeast without using Jiangdong's or Jingzhou's troops. We only need to strike at what he fears most, Xiliang." He replied to Lu Su, telling him not to worry, and then advised Liu Bei to write to Ma Chao in Xiliang, stir up his hatred for Cao Cao and urge him to raise troops in Guangzhou. If the rear burned, Cao Cao would have no leisure to attack the south. Liu Bei followed this advice and sent a trusted man west with the letter. In Xiliang, Ma Chao had a nightmare of lying in snow surrounded by tigers. Disturbed, he told his officers. Peng De, courtesy name Ling Ming, his close commander, said this was a bad omen, likely for Ma Teng and Xuchang. Just then, cousin Ma Dai rushed in, crying that Ma Teng and Ma Chao's two younger brothers had been executed after a failed plot with the official Huang Kuei to kill Cao Cao. Ma Chao collapsed in grief and swore hatred against Cao Cao. At that moment, Liu Bei's letter arrived. It reminded Ma Chao of the secret edict he and Ma Teng once received to strike the traitor Cao, and invited him to attack Guangzhou from the west while Liu Bei pressured Cao from the front. Ma Chao wept, immediately agreed, and began preparations. Before he could march, Governor Han Sui summoned him and showed a letter from Cao Cao, promising to make Han Sui Marquis of Xiliang if he delivered Ma Chao bound to Xuchang. Ma Chao knelt and offered himself, but Han Sui refused, citing his sworn brotherhood with Ma Teng, killed the envoy instead and pledged support. He mobilized 8 commanders, Ho Xian, Chengyin, Li Kan, Zhang Heng, Liang Xing, Chengyi Ma Wan, and Yang Qiu, who joined Ma Chao, Peng De, and Ma Dai with some 200,000 Xiliang troops and advanced on Chang'an. Zhong Yao, prefect of Chang'an, reported to Cao Cao and marched out, but was quickly defeated by Ma Dai and forced back into the city, which was then tightly besieged. Chang'an's walls and moats were strong, and 10 days of assault did not break it. Peng De analyzed that the city's soil and resources made grain and fuel scarce, so a prolonged siege would starve it. He proposed a feigned retreat instead. Ma Chao agreed, ordered all units to withdraw in good order, and personally covered the rear. Zhong Yao, wary of a trick, kept watch, then finally believed the enemy had retreated and sent soldiers and civilians outside to cut wood and fetch water. 5 days later, Ma Chao's army returned. Zhong Yao was forced to close the gates again. Zhong Yao's brother Zhong Jin guarded the west gate. One night, a fire broke out inside the gate. As Zhong Jin rushed to deal with it, Peng De suddenly charged out, killed him, broke the chains, and opened the gate. Ma Chao and Han Sui's forces poured in and took Chang'an. Zhong Yao escaped east and fell back to Tong Pass. Cao Cao, hearing of Chang'an's fall, had to abandon his southern campaign and instead sent Cao Hong and Su Huang with 10,000 men to hold Tong Pass, warning that if they lost it within 10 days, they would be executed. Cao Ren followed with grain and support. At Tong Pass, Cao Hong wanted to fight, but Su Huang urged caution. Ma Chao came daily to curse Cao Cao's ancestors and challenge them. For 8 days Su Huang restrained Cao Hong, but on the 9th day, seeing the Shiliang soldiers resting and their horses tied loosely, Cao Hong rushed out with 3,000 men. It turned out to be a trap. Ma Dai, Ma Chao, and Pang De ambushed from all sides. Cao Hong was badly beaten and forced to abandon Tong Pass, only barely rescued later by Cao Ren's arriving force. Ma Chao seized the pass. Back in camp, Cao Cao confronted Cao Hong and Su Huang. Cao Hong admitted he had been angered into battle and tricked. Su Huang said he had tried to stop him but had been too late. Cao Cao, enraged, almost had Cao Hong executed, but spared him after everyone begged for mercy. Cao Cao then led the main army to Tong Pass himself, built 3 fortified camps, and advanced. Facing the Shiliang army in formation, he saw Ma Chao at the front. White armor, white robes, handsome face, mighty voice and strength, spear in hand, flanked by Pang De and Ma Dai. Cao Cao called out, "You are a descendant of famous Han generals. Why rebel against the court?" Ma Chao answered furiously that Cao was a traitor who had murdered his father and brothers, and swore to capture him and eat his flesh. He charged. Eugene came forth and was beaten back after a few rounds. Zhang He also failed. Li Tong was killed outright. The Shiliang army surged forward, defeating Chao's troops. Ma Chao, Pang De, and Ma Dai led picked riders straight at the central banner to capture Cao Cao. In the chaos, Shiliang soldiers shouted, "The one in red is Cao Cao." Cao Cao hurriedly stripped off his red robe. Then they shouted, "The long-bearded one is Cao Cao." He cut off his beard. When they shifted to, "The short-bearded one is Cao Cao," he wrapped a strip of flag around his neck to hide. A later verse mocked how he cast off his robe and beard to escape, while Ma Chao's prestige soared. Still, Ma Chao nearly caught him. Cao Cao, abandoned by fleeing officers, ran around a tree to dodge a spear thrust that stuck into the trunk. Only when Cao Hong suddenly appeared to block Ma Chao, and Xiahou Yuan arrived with reinforcements, did Cao Cao escape back to camp. He sighed that if he had executed Cao Hong earlier, he would have died that day. After that, Cao Cao stayed inside his fortifications, ordered deep ditches and high ramparts, and forbade anyone to give battle. Ma Chao taunted and challenged daily, but Cao Cao would not come out, which puzzled his generals, who were used to his bravery at the front. Soon scouts reported that Ma Chao had received 20,000 Chong reinforcements, and later more troops at the pass. The generals worried, but Cao Cao, contrary to expectations, was delighted and even held a banquet. When questioned, he asked if any of them had plans. Su Huang said that since the enemy had concentrated around Tong Pass, the area west of the river must be weakly defended. He suggested sending a small force to cross secretly at Puban Ford to cut the enemy's retreat, while Cao Cao attacked from the east bank, striking front and rear. Cao Cao approved, sending Su Huang and Zhu Ling with 4,000 elite troops to hide in the mountains west of the river, while Cao Hong went ahead to prepare boats at Puban. Cao Cao himself moved to cross the way. Ma Chao learned of this and guessed Cao Cao wanted to cut his rear. He first thought to block the crossing on the north bank and let Chao's supplies run out, but Han Sui cited the principle, attack when half have crossed, and advised waiting to hit them mid-crossing. Ma Chao agreed and watched for the right moment. At dawn, Cao Cao began the river crossing. He sat on the south bank overseeing it when word came that the white-robed general was behind them, Ma Chao. Soldiers panicked and crowded onto the boats. One of Cao Cao's strongest guards, Su Chu, grabbed him, leapt onto a half-drifting boat, and with one hand steering and the other holding a saddle above Cao Cao's head, shielded him from Ma Chao's arrows as the boat spun in the current. Several rowers and many men were shot. On a hill, Magistrate Ding Fei of Weinan saw this crisis. To distract the Xiliang troops, he released all the camp's cattle, sheep, and horses into the fields. The sight of easy plunder tempted many of Ma Chao's soldiers to chase livestock instead of the boat. Taking advantage, Su Chu and Cao Cao reached the north bank, where all boats were destroyed to stop pursuit. Cao Cao thanked Ding Fei warmly and promoted him to commandant of the army. Ding Fei warned that the enemy would return the next day, and Cao Cao revealed his plan. Build causeways, plant flags to create the illusion of many troops, and dig hidden pits along the riverbank to trap enemy cavalry. Ma Chao, hearing how Su Chu had carried Cao Cao to safety, learned his name and reputation as the fierce tiger fool. Han Sui urged him not to underestimate such a man. The two also agreed they could not let Cao Cao fortify comfortably on the north bank. After an initial clash where Pangda and Han Sui fell into the trap pits and suffered losses, but were rescued by Ma Chao, they realized that delay only favored Cao Cao. That night they decided on a sudden raid. Ma Chao led the front force, Pangda and Ma Dai the rear. But Cao Cao had already emptied his central camp and ringed it with ambushes, intending to lure them in. He ordered all troops to attack on the signal. Ma Chao first sent Cheng Yi with 30 riders to scout. Seeing no one stop him, Cheng Yi rode straight into the central camp, only for the signal cannon to boom and hidden troops to spring out from all sides. Cheng Yi was beheaded by Xiahou Yuan. Most of his men died. Meanwhile, Ma Chao, Pangda, and Ma Dai were already closing in with the main force, ready for a desperate battle. How it ends is left for the next chapter. Summary. This chapter shows how Cao Cao's grand plan to attack south is broken by a move he did not expect. Zhuge Liang using Ma Chao. At the start, Chen Kun designs a long-term strategy for Cao Cao. First take Jiangdong, then Jing province, then Sichuan, to unify the realm step by step. On paper it seems solid, but Zhuge Liang purposely refuses to join this rhythm. Instead of sending troops from Jingzhou or pleading with Sun Quan, he writes a single letter to Xiliang, aiming straight at Cao Cao's greatest fear. After Ma Teng is killed in Xuchang, Ma Chao's hatred explodes. Joined by Han Sui and other warlords, he raises a huge army in the northwest, captures Chang'an, forces Zhong Yao back to Tong Pass, and compels Cao Cao to abandon his southern expedition and rush west in person. On the battlefield, Ma Chao shines as a warrior. He defeats Eugene and Zhang He, kills Li Tong, nearly captures Cao Cao, and drives him into the embarrassing scenes of casting off his red robe, cutting his beard, and hiding his neck with a strip of flag cloth. The famous image of cutting the beard and throwing away the robe comes from here and symbolizes how badly Ma Chao frightens him. Yet courage alone is not enough. Once Cao Cao survives the crisis at the river, thanks to Su Chu's heroic rescue and Ding Fei's clever release of cattle and horses, he returns to what he does best: digging in, setting traps, and fighting with patience and calculation. He refuses Ma Chao's provocations at Tong Pass, builds strong camps, uses false formations and hidden pits along the riverbank, and sends Su Huang and Zhu Ling on a flanking movement across the river to threaten the enemy's rear. In their first clash, Han Sui and Pangda fall into the traps and lose generals and men, while Cao Cao remains firmly in control of the overall situation. By the end of the chapter, Ma Chao, still burning with anger and confidence, chooses to raid Cao Cao's camp at night. Cao Cao, anticipating this, empties his central camp and surrounds it with ambushes, waiting to catch the Xiliang troops as they rush in. The story stops at the moment their forces are about to collide, highlighting the core contrast of this chapter. Ma Chao's explosive bravery versus Cao Cao's cold, layered strategy, and the way Zhuge Liang set the whole chain of events in motion from far away with just one letter. Knowledge points. 1. Ma Teng's death and the Huang Kuei plot. In the novel, Ma Teng and the official Huang Kuei conspire to assassinate Cao Cao and Xuchang. The plot is exposed, and they are executed on the spot, which directly triggers Ma Chao's revolt. Historically, Ma Teng did go to the capital and was executed by Cao Cao for conspiracy. But official histories like the records of the Three Kingdoms do not describe a dramatic failed assassination scene, or explicitly mention Huang Kuei in this way. The novel exaggerates and dramatizes the incident to give Ma Chao a more emotional motive. 2. The fall of Chang'an and the Guanzhong campaign. Romance of the Three Kingdoms describes Ma Chao and Han Sui capturing Chang'an first, forcing Zhong Yao to abandon the city and then retreat step by step, finally making Cao Cao come west personally. In real history, the key fighting of the Guanzhong campaign took place around Tong Pass and nearby areas. The clear sequence of lose Chang'an first, then fall back to Tong Pass, is mainly a literary structure to raise tension and dramatize Ma Chao's momentum. 3. Cutting the beard and casting off the robe at Tong Pass. The famous scenes of Cao Cao shedding his robe, slicing off his beard, and dodging Ma Chao's spear around a tree are iconic parts of the novel. Historically, Cao Cao was indeed under heavy pressure in the battle against Ma Chao, but the detailed actions, cutting his beard to hide his identity and fleeing in such a comical, vivid way, are not found in official records. They come from later storytelling traditions and serve to highlight Ma Chao's ferocity and Cao Cao's moment of panic. 4. Su Chu's superhuman rescue. The episode in which Su Chu carries Cao Cao on his back, leaps to a boat, shields him from a rain of arrows with a saddle, and single-handedly keeps the spinning boat under control is clearly heroic exaggeration. Su Chu was historically one of Cao Cao's closest bodyguards and strongest warriors, and there are records of him saving Cao Cao in dangerous situations. However, the specific river crossing rescue in this form is literary embellishment. It amplifies Su Chu's tiger fool image and reinforces the theme that even when Cao Cao is at his weakest moment, he still has loyal, nearly superhuman protectors by his side.